continuation, another golf story for you. This one takes place at, and I think it's River Oaks, and that is in Houston, and probably the most exclusive club that I've ever tried to, or that I've been to, because the security at the gate when I showed up in my rental car was like, oh, I almost had to bend over. They were checking everything out, checking my ID, making sure I was on the list, and blah, blah, blah. But as it turns out, a lot of rich people live and belong to that golf course. I guess Houston, it's like an oil people, right? A lot of oil people that are like the CEOs of Enron and all these places, you know. So anyway, so it's a gig with the SAP, who I did their photography for nearly 10 years with Gary Player and Ernie Els. 4 a year, 2 with Ernie and 2 with Gary for I think 9 years, so 10 years maybe. 40 events, 20 with each of them. So I got to know Gary and Ernie very well. Very lucky, very blessed. What a great trip that was. SAP was so good to me. So this one was at River Oaks, very exclusive, and they had their top 30 clients there, some of their top 30 clients. Anyways, fast forward to the 10th hole. It's a par 5. And the corporate guys tee off, and we're about 280 yards, 270 from the green, right? And this guy's getting ready to hit his shot. The other 3 guys are over to the left. And Gary's standing right beside me. I'm standing there taking some pictures of the guy with Gary and whatnot. And the guy says, well, what should I hit, Mr. Player? I should hit a layup, eh? And Gary goes, and the guy's built like the Rock, eh? Like muscles on top of muscles, like big dude, eh? Fairly young guy, probably early 30s. Built like a you-know-what. Anyways, Gary says, no, he says, you've got a great swing, my friend. He says, you can go for the green. You can get it there. He says, pull out your 3-wood. Guy says, oh, no, I can't get it. He says, put a nice smooth swing on it, and you can get there. Anyway, so Gary and I stand back a little bit. The guy brings out his 3-wood, measures it up, takes a nice swing, puts a nice thing on it. The ball hit it, beautiful contact. Ball took off. And I've always been called the Hawk. I always had great eyesight, right? And I'm following the ball. All of a sudden, I couldn't see it anymore. And Gary says, oh, great shot, my friend. He says, you're about 12 feet from the pin. And I said, you can see that? He goes, oh yeah, I just had my eyes resumed. And then he goes, gets in his cart and off he goes. And the other guy, off he goes. And I'm thinking, scratching my head thinking, what the hell does he mean? He just had his eyes resumed. Like, what does that mean, you know? Up to the green, they putt out, and as we're walking from the green to the next tee, I said, Gary, come over here. Comes over, yeah, what, Bob? I said, what did you mean you had your eyes resumed? He said, oh, well, he said, I have a famous ophthalmologist that lives on my street in, I think it was in West Palm Beach at the time. And he said, I told him my eyes were getting worse. I was having trouble seeing without glasses and this. And he says, oh, Gary, he says, I can take your lenses out and put brand new ones in. You'll see like you did, like you were a baby. And Gary's like, oh, man, I don't know, man. Something goes wrong. The guy says, no, nothing's going to go wrong. Don't you worry. I've done it before. And so Gary says he went and had the operation done. And then he's all bandaged up. And the guy says, okay, in the morning, take the bandages off. So Gary's in the morning, he's in there, he's unwrapping all the bandages and everything. And then he looks at it, and he looks at the mirror, and everything's blurry. And he's like, oh my God, what have I done? He goes out into the kitchen, and his wife Vivian's there, and she goes, what's the matter? He says, oh, I don't know if I've done the right thing. He says, everything's blurry. He says, my career's over, I can't see anything. So he phones the doctor. Says, hey, he says, don't worry, Gary, give it a couple of days. It's going to take a bit of time. And so sure enough, a couple of days later, it's fine. And Gary says, and he tells me this. So he says, give me that Titleist box. He's got no glasses or anything. He reads that. You know what the fine print on a Titleist sleeve of golf balls is? It's so tiny. And he reads that as well. He says, look, see, just like a newborn baby. So I'm like, wow, that is amazing. And funny enough, I've been having trouble with my eyes lately too. Well, that was a pretty good little story, eh? Old Gary Player. And I wanted to add a little something to that because when he said he'd had his eyes resumed, at that time my eyes were pretty good. I mean, not quite as good as his, obviously. But anyways, fast forward my right eye was getting a little blurry, and I was sent to this ophthalmologist who had just moved from Sydney to Vancouver. I said, why on earth would you do that? He said, well, I made the mistake of meeting and falling in love with a Canadian girl. I go, well, yeah, well, I can totally understand that. That happens to the best of men. And anyways, so I went and saw him. They did all these x-rays, and he looks after the front of the eye. I didn't know that there was a back of the eye guy and a front of the eye guy. I'm like, okay, just go an extra couple of years to university and learn the whole eye? I guess it's pretty intricate, our little eyeballs. Anyways, so he does all the x-rays, and he comes into his office and says, yes, you have neoplasia, it's called. And it's like a gel that's caused from sun exposure. And he says, I saw a lot of that in Australia because we, have so much sun down there and surfing and all that kind of stuff. So he says, what I can do is I'll scrape it. It's like a gel. I'll scrape it off your eye. And I'm like, oh, you're going to scrape that off my eye? He says, what? This was a Tuesday. I only saw him on the Tuesday. He says, what are you doing Thursday? I go, well, I guess I'll be having my eye scraped. He said, yeah, meet me at Mount St. Joseph's Hospital and I'll get it all done for you there. So fast forward to Thursday. Didn't give me time to think, and my God, who the hell wants somebody scraping their eye? Anyways, so Thursday I show up at the hospital. They put me in a gown and they give you this juice to get you all prepared. Well, they could be chopping. I was singing and frolicking. They could have been chopping off my leg. I could have cared less. They wheeled me into the surgery, put like a white sheet over you. And there's an anesthetist sitting beside you. Said, you comfortable? I go, oh yeah, I'm comfortable. I said, I think I need a little bit more of that juice. He goes, no, you got enough of that. I go, come on, I'm tugging on his sleeve. Give me a little bit more. Yeah, you gave me a little bit more anyways. So I couldn't really feel him, but I could feel the shadow of the guy going scraping off the eyeball. Then that's done. They put a patch over me. I come back in a week. So I go back in a week, and he says, it's come back a little bit. And he said, you don't want me to keep scraping your eye off all the time, do you? And I go, not really. But he said, so what I suggest and what I did in Australia was I had my patients put chemo drops in the eye. And after about a month, it killed the cancer and everything was good. He said, the only problem is that the big pharma company, Merck, he didn't really say who, Merck or somebody, they stopped making that product because they weren't making any money off of it. And he says, I can't really find it anywhere, but he says, I'll keep looking. Meantime, I'll have a batch of chemo prepared for you in this lab in St. Louis. Anyways, week goes by, I get this batch of stuff. I go in there and he tells me what to do. So I'm dropping this chemotherapy into my eye 3 or 4 times a day. And like at the end, I guess 3 weeks, I have another point, go back in there and he says, well, I got good news and I got bad news. I said, so what's that? What's the good news? Well, he says the good news is that the chemo drops have killed the cancer in your eye, and that's gone, and hopefully won't come back. I can't guarantee it. I said, what's the bad news? He says, well, the bad news is it's kind of trashed your eye. I go, well, thanks a lot. So he said, hopefully it will improve a little bit. You can go to the optometrist, get your eyeglasses tuned up a little bit more. So anyways, that went on, and my eye's still a bit blurry today. So anyways, I've been living with that. And he says, but we need to do the cataracts in your left eye. But I said, you've been through enough. Let's give that a year or so. Anyways, fast forward to, this was about 3 years ago. Last fall, my right eye, again, started to get way blurrier than it was. So I went to the other guy who does the back of the eye, right? Dr. Mamo. I've never met him before in my life. He takes a whole bunch of x-rays with a bunch of different cameras and stuff. And so then he comes into his office. Now, I got a picture of this. I've never met the guy before. I'm sitting in the chair. He sits behind his desk, and he turns his screen towards me, and he says, so there's your eyeball. Well, he says hi, first of all, but not much. Here's your eyeball. And he says, see this little groove in the straight line here? You go, I said, yeah. He says, well, that's a hole in the macular wall of your eye. So I'm sitting there kind of dumbfounded. So he says, what I can do, and he doesn't miss a beat, what I can do is, he said, I will drain the liquid out. So I'm thinking before he says anything, well, how the hell are you going to get in the back of my eye? You got to drill a hole in my temple. And how do you get to the back of it? Anyway, so he says, so what I can do for you, he says, I can drain all the liquid out of your eye, and then I go back in behind the eye, and I can, with lasers, repair that hole, and then I refill your eye with either gas or liquid, and that's a game day call. And he said then, I have a 70% success rate, and hopefully your eye will get better. It'll never be what it was, but I think I can get you back to, pretty good vision in it. And he looked at me and he said, have you got any questions? And I looked at him. I've never met the guy in my life, right? And I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I looked at him and I said, are you fucking kidding me? I don't know if I can say fucking on YouTube, but I just said it. Are you fucking kidding me? You're going to drain the liquid out of my eye and then go in with lasers, repair the hole, then refill my eyeball with liquid or gas? I'm like, wow. I said, well, I don't know, like I'm dumbfounded, right? So he says, well, listen, you don't have to decide this minute. And he said, the longer you leave it, the less chance I have of even doing that operation. It'll just get bigger and bigger. So I go, oh, man. So I said, let me think about it. So I walked out of his office and I stood out front of his office door and I thought, well, what choice do I really have? I mean, this is something that I have to have done. It's only going to get worse. And I'm a photographer. I need my eyes. Went right back in and I said to the nurse, okay, make me an appointment. So they made it for like a month. It was actually put back twice. And, I mean, gosh, that's on your mind for like 2 months. Like, you got to have the liquid drained out of your eye. So that was a tough couple. Finally, I go in for my operation. And again, they freeze the eye and they put numbing drops in it and everything. And give you a little bit of that happy juice that I call it. Not as good as the other one, but it was pretty good. Anyways, the only thing I really remember was this big needle. I was in the operating chair, and this big needle came right at me, and I think it went probably just below my eyeball, And I guess he injected more freezing in there. That really freaked my stomach, got a bit queasy when that happened. But other than that, I was all right. And then he did the operation, never felt anything, never felt any pain afterwards or anything. And then fast forward, I went back, a week later, and he goes, the operation was very successful. He showed me, you could see where the gap was closed up and everything. And I said, yeah, but my eye's still really blurry. He says, well, that could take 6 months to a year for the eye to gain back into focus. And that was, let's see, last December. It's now end of June 2026. And it's still pretty blurry. But about, I want to say 2 months ago now, I went in and had my left cataracts done. And that's really sharpened up my left eye, which consequently now I'm pretty good. And I have prescription glasses that I wear, sunglasses. And so vision's much better than it was before. But my God, this getting older sucks. And as my mother-in-law used to always say, damn the golden years. They should be called the rusty years. Yeah, so that's it. Adios. Thanks for tuning in to another little episode of Hanging with Huxley. And I hope you enjoyed this one. And I just thought I'd add that on to the end of my Gary Player story about how he had his eyes resumed, which blew me away. And then I had to go through a similar experience. But anyways, that's it for now. Thank you all. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye. I see you. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this fellow, Mark Warren, got a hole-in-one right while Gary was standing beside him on the tee, and I was there as well. And I gave him the photo after the fact, and I had Gary write that little thing on a blank piece of paper, and I added that onto the photo and then sent it to him nicely framed. He's got the two sides there, and so I thought that was a nice little package for him to receive compliments of SAP. Thank you. Bye.